we'll break at that point with community services. And so now we're on to page 271, the water demand strategy review. Do I have a mover? Murray, Secretary Tony, welcome Mo. Any discussion from anybody? Tony.
So much on the demand, but on the conservation side and the ease of people being able to collect water. So I'm aware of difficulty something we're having, for instance, there are systems that look a bit like the road barriers, you know, that might be a metre a bit high and so wide, and they all interconnect. So two neighbours can say, oh, let's put a fence up of this stuff, and we'll have our own captured water. Then they class them, so it actually looks like cement walls. The difficulties they run into. So for me, I think I'd like to see us do something to make it easier and to encourage people to use whatever means are possible, and particularly those that are sort of architecturally sound or design sound and don't detract from the property, to make that possible. So how you write that into something, I don't know, but I know I get quite a few calls, and others do, about people that have tried to do something and then there's an obstacle. They get over it. For me, I think it needs to be a bit easier.
So some discretion around the application of the strategy by individuals?
Yes, it's
a bit like the RMA now has some exemptions at the discretion of officers, so there's a bit of a discretion built into it. Is that what you're thinking about?
Yes, I give some photographs of these things to say, you know, if you put something like that in, basically tell us you're doing it and go ahead and do it. I think if we're going to encourage people to collect water, we have to make that as seamless as possible. If you're going to encourage people and they've got to jump through a hoop to do it, either they won't do it or they'll get frustrated by it, or it'll add cost that some people don't want to use. So all I'd say is that I agree with everything that's in this thing about there's no more, it's conserve. Store. We have to make it possible for people to store. And again, it's encouraging people with new builds. You know, whether we go down the track and say every new build will have 30,000 litres under 4 stored. And the mechanism to make sure it doesn't come out of the tap, it comes off the roof. But I think, yeah, we have to do more in that space, that's all.
So in support of the strategy, we need to tweak the district plan to allow for that to be more seamless, because it's something that we're really strongly all endorse.
Correct.
So the next district plan, any variation or amendment to the district plan, will tweak that in terms of our water conservation measures. Are people happy with that? So you can take a note of that, Mo. That's really critical. Yeah, Tony, you're absolutely right in that space. Murray.
Look, I believe it's a good document, but to me, you know, nothing like focusing people's mind on cost. You know, it does focus the mind, and I don't want to reiterate it, but I think we've been a little bit remiss, and I'm going to take Whittianga just as one. We've got a medium risk in terms of supply. Some might call it a high risk in terms of supply. I think you call it a medium one here. But when we get told, and the second thing is a consistency of figures, because when we get told it's 1.3 million to store a day's supply at peak demand, that focuses the mind of a lot of people when they ask for some things. I look at some of our figures coming out in terms of our water reticulation size, our demands, some of the information coming about our restriction days being averaged and not referring to respective communities. Our messaging has been bad. And whilst this is a good document, we've got to wrap some really good messaging around, and I've pleaded, and you know, I hate getting it in the neck when we put out a document that averages the number of days water's been restricted to about 10 or so 12 across the district, and we've had 130 in our district. Well, it's just nonsense.
You mean in your ward?
Yeah, in our ward, yeah. So, you know, it's just nonsense, and I just hope that we actually come a little bit more.
Can I say that for the records that I put together from past years on conservation requirements and, you know, the 5 different criteria.
Yeah.
Whitianga was at the lowest requirement. This last Christmas, it was at the highest.
Yeah.
So there's swings and roundabouts, and every other community in the district are fairly conservation oriented when it comes to water. I'm afraid that Whitianga got that wake-up call.
And that's where I think we've got a message around metering, because I'll put my hand up, I want peak consumption metering tomorrow. And those clouds are going use 20 cube a day and watering the lawns in the middle of summer. I don't care if it's $20 a cube or $200 a cube. They pay for it.
And
Okay.
if I go to the messaging, just pick up what Murray's saying. So for many people, if you're a household of 2 people, or maybe 4, the water cost potentially goes down.
Yes.
If you are someone that rents your house out, there's 12 people there with 2 boats, 4 cars, and a couple of jet skis, it probably goes up. But unless we tell people that, you know, if you have a meter and you are responsible for it, you'll have less cost. So, because most of the stuff I read, the objection, well, you go and look at it, over 60% against water nets, right? And
Well,
yet,
it used to be until I
would have thought 60% wrong because they're going to have a reduced water bill potentially. So I don't know.
Because I was just saying to the others yesterday, like, we would never dream of sharing our power bills in the same cul-de-sac. You know, everyone's used to paying for that utility and how much you use. And so why are people upset by paying how much water they use as opposed to averaging it out? It doesn't make sense to me why people worry about that.
Okay, well, we're not going to solve that problem today, but you're right. So we're going to move right along here. Terry.
Yeah, I've read this in detail. I find that it lacks high narrative about futures, demands and capacity, and looking at that, it's really about what we've got today and how to restrict it. That's what I see in the water demand. So you know, we've spent $30 million on monitoring and compliance, but there's nothing on capacity, demand, or looking for new sources. So I just asked myself, you know, where are we going with this? You know, if we'd spent the $50 million on Whitianga's membrane plants on deep water aquifers, how much will we have water supply for the next 100 years? So I'm just trying to get my head around this, and it's sort of, in the actual wording, it sort of contradicts itself. It talks about the fact that there's a legislation under the Global Government Act 2002 that we have to provide capacity, have to provide demand, and yet it says in here that, well, we're not actually going to do that, we're just going to do it on what we've got and with metering. So it seems to be narrow on that kind of explanation. And then you can look at the graphs, and it talks about, you know, Whitianga medium, 170 days of restrictions, and Wangmata high on 79, 90 Mana high on 18. So I really find difficulty with the numbers fitting with the words in the discussion. And if you go down to the 4 big ones, which I saw out there that they said, which was tourism, drought, network condition, and limiting growth. If you go through the numbers there, and you'll see that in fact August was the highest month, and not January, you know, hot period of the year. So very confusing when you look at the numbers. So that's why I think I'm not very happy as it sits. If I was a ratepayer reading this, and if you go through, like, if you take out the litres in Thames, Wangata, Whitianga and Tyrol, they're all different situations, they actually come out, the numbers are pretty similar. So it's not like there's a huge problem over this area versus that area. That's what the numbers tell me. So I'm just saying that, and you go to Thames, 2014, 40% loss through a metered system, and 2021 is supposed to be resolved and have a great system. So, but, you know, for about 6 years, you've had 40% loss in your system with a metered system. So I find it confusing, and I don't find it's really telling the story to the ratepayer. So, yeah, I'm not comfortable with it at the moment, the way it reads.
So, do you want to make any comment at all, Hilary? No?
Yeah, just a couple of,
It is a demand strategy.
Yes, demand.
It's not about future provision of infrastructure.
yes,
So,
Well, I think that's a responsibility that comes through the New Zealand Local Government Act, that it has to be a responsibility. It says that this is a strategic level of emphasis in all demands and management initiatives and existing sources and supplies. It's part of what we should be providing it's our number one, water is our number one commodity. We can't live without it, we can't do anything else. And we're just squeezing it up into a very small thing where it should be a far more high level narrative about what we're doing.
if I may answer that question, Councillor Fox. The water demand strategy is about managing water use. This is not a strategic plan or a water supply development plan. Some of the things you are referring to will be in a water supply development plan for the district or a particular township. Like what we are doing in Pahe, we made a provision next year to do for Whitianga, to investigate sources. That is quite different to a demand management. It's more about how people use water, how can we conserve water as a community, and how can we defer our capital works as a result and minimize our losses. So that's what this report is about.
Yeah, the words don't come through, like even talk about tanks and, harvesting rainwater and all that, but no incentives with it, or, the council's, what's their savings they've done. There's no actual plan of showing what they've done over the time. So how you get a customer, if we had 10% of our ratepayers put tanks in, we'd most probably fix the water problem overnight, and they're paying for it. But there's no incentives for them to do that. So why would they do it?
you couldn't fix the water problem overnight by just putting tanks in, because if it doesn't run, tanks aren't going.
Those tanks are filled in winter, ready for the summer, and it's only over that much. If it's a summer problem, which I don't know if it is, it doesn't look like in this plan,
Yes.
it would fix that problem.
Any further questions of mine? Okay. Being no further questions, are those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
I'm against it. I don't feel comfortable with it as it sits.
Carries vote. Okay. So budget request for.
Thank you, Worship Mayor. And the
Thank you,
councillors.
Mark.
I'm happy to pass those notes on if you want them.
Budget request for storm damage response and reinstatement. For the 5 storm events. Those are storm events which,
I'm happy to do that.
yeah, ended to have funding 71%. So, any comment you want to make here?
Not at the moment, no.
So, move Tony, do I have a seconder? John, any discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Well done, Ian. Great job.
Just stay.
Oh,
Got the next one.
right, speed limit briefing, 318. So is there any comment anybody want to make about the speed limit policy? Do I have a mover?
I'll move it.
John, seconder? It's just to receive it. Lauren? Oh, Martin, sorry. Oh, you want to speak, Martin? Or you second? Seconding and speaking.
Can I second and speak?
Yes. We can speak in a second.
So, yeah, I have to admit I found this sort of quite a high level sort of thing when I got to page 322, the little coloured squares. My brain sort of stopped working. I didn't really understand it all. But I guess really what we want to know is can we change speed limits, and
So it'll be through the regional Clean Transport Committee, but yes.
but I mean I'd like to work that one.
Tony, do you want to respond to that, about the change in the speed limit?
Yes, well, what will happen is in the new year, the legislation will change and local authorities will be able to recommend and change speed limits on their local roads. And a much easier process than you have now. So, and there'll be criteria around that, so that you have to go through. So a lot of us, how many vehicle movements are there and what other things in place? So the big one at the moment, and Ed was at the same meeting as me yesterday, they're looking down with schools, not for each individual school to have to apply for road limits. It'll be just a policy to say, you know, however many metres either side of the school, the speed limit will be, and that will be how they fix it. So there is work going on in that space, and local people can change their speed limits now. I mean, so we did that in Whittianga, the changes were right. It was 80 kilometres an hour, like it was when that road went in, maybe 12, 13 years ago. There was no houses there, and now it's all built up on one side, and there's major commercial activities on the other side. And there were a lot of requests about that from a safety point of view. And so we made the case, and then used the police and whatever, to get a temporary speed limit put in, which is now 50 kilometres an hour, and it says temporary. And it's not yet gazetted. So if you're going through there at 80, a bit hard to prosecute you because the police are going to only have to say it's gazetted. So, but yeah, the process is going to get easier, and all I just say to people, just hold tight until the new year, and when that policy comes into being, and then we'll be able to look after what we do at our roads with a lot more autonomy. Is that a fair comment, Ed?
It is, yeah.
So Tony, when you said before that people will be able to build a case and collect data, would that be council responsibility, or would we be asked who's going to collect the data for that case?
If there is certain data available already online.
Yep.
You can get traffic volumes, average speeds, accident statistics, all currently available through websites, Wakakatani websites. That information can be used by any member of the public.
However, I'm sure that I'm going to make a judgment call here that the roads that you'll be thinking of will be the state highways.
Well,
so they're
yes.
not local.
Right, so
it's
that
easier to
data only exists for local roads.
That exists for all roads.
Right, okay.
But the
It's
decision maker,
the decision maker for state highways has got to be the transport agency.
We have a couple of roads.
but Tony can help them along as our transport, yeah.
Those are the ones that we know about now. That we're in charge of doing. And what I'm going to add is everything becomes evidence-based in this game. So if there's only 10 cars driving down the road a day, no one's even interested, I'm not going to police them. There was 1,000 cars a day going down there, and there's been 5 deaths in the last 2 weeks. You can guarantee someone's going to be there. So no decisions are made on roading assets without evidence.
Yeah.
And someone was saying, I think I saw a car go past 140 the other day. Doesn't matter. Because, it wasn't 140, it was too late out.
Okay, so I'll put the resolution, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. Common classification of reserves. Do I have a mover?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Do I have a mover? Jerry, seconder? Gary? Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Yes, carried. Adoption of the draft of Rongamata Reserve Management Plan for public consultation. Do I have a mover?
Yep.
Terry, second to Gary. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Declaration of land at Kurunui Bay, Thames as a recreational reserve. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Sally, seconder?
My only question is, this has no implications for the settlement or anything with Hundred Whenua? It's all right, okay, cool.
Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Treasury Management Policy for Adoption, 426. Donna? Do I have a mover? No, I don't have a mover. Martin, second Murray. Any discussion around this particular policy? the Treasury Management Policy for adoption on page 4 to
This is one of the workshops with people who say.
So, no discussion, there be none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Well done, Donna, thank you very much. I see you're at the next one, which is the rates remission of postponement policy for a adoption. Rates remission and any, right, do I have a mover?
I'll move it.
Second, moved John, seconded Martin. Any questions or queries around the rates remission policy, which we've done pretty
I
well?
was just looking at the, I got slightly confused with in the legend on page 536. It talks of, where is it, DPC, and I couldn't see that in the legend.
Sorry, Gary, I'm just sitting here.
I'm sure it's just been, if you just look at the page
Oh,
here.
That's another, so it's not this paper.
Oh, isn't it?
Rates remission, no, that's the next one.
Oh, the next one, okay. Oh, Alison.
So we're on the rates remission and postponement policies for adoption, delegations under the Resource Management Act, we're not on there yet. Okay. So there being none of the resolution, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Okay, so we're on to the next one, which is the updates to delegation register under the Resource Management Act. So that's the one, Gary.
Yeah, I was just, in the legend, it has all the ones mentioned, but it is DPC in capital letters, which is referred to in there, and I just don't know what DPC means. It's probably staring me in the face.
District plan
Change.
Did you plan C or?
C is change, is it? District plan committee, change. Where are we? I'm actually not sure.
I'll show you.
DPC.
Here,
Yeah.
right here, DPC here,
Yeah, it's got here, it's got there. I just don't know.
and it's not up here.
It's not up in the legend. That was all. I was just scratching.
It's positions. If you see the heading, that's the position. So therefore, those are type PPM. I'm not quite sure what that is, but DPC is district plan committee or.
Well, it's not on the legend. Not on the
Yeah, it's not in
legend.
the legend.
Is Alison coming to talk to us?
So the other ones are, if it's PPC, policy planning coordinator, it's just not there.
But the heading above all of those is position. So those people that are involved with that aspect.
But I'm sure it's still a question. I'm sure
Allison's
it's
on his way. Ask a
DPC
sorry, I
does
don't know
not
what that
appear in the
means.
legends.
That's right. It's a simple issue and a very valid issue.
I don't know what it means.
We just need to work out what it
Because
is.
So we can-
DPC is quite a bit.
It could be coordinator.
We can't go to the next
Well,
one.
rather than guessing, you can find out.
We can get it.
Yes, it is.
It's a very ahead of schedule.
Right.
Councillor
That was my only,
Godley was just asking about the definition for DPC.
on the
We
legend.
couldn't
that's all.
find it in the legend.
And attachment A. Attachment A is being revoked. So that's the old version, there must have been an error.
Revokes the delegations as per attachment A.
Yeah.
Delegations.
Oh, those are all the remote ones.
Yes, so I wanted to be able to show the council what was the original delegation schedule and then the amendments.
So
that have been-
DPC though is district plan, what?
I imagine it was a typo at the time, back in 2018.
Co-ward, okay, but it's obsolete, we'll still get that clarified for you, Gary's amendment to the minutes.
So why did you put 20 pages of obsolete in?
Yes, but we have to do that so that you've got a comparison between what's been and what's coming, what's being adopted. So unfortunately, that's the requirement of the local government act.
Yeah, so attachment B is the one that is being.
That's right, attachment B updates the changes in roles that have happened in the last 18 months or so, and a number. So in my cover report, I give you an overview of what those were. Because our delegations register relies on the role titles being consistent, it does need to come back in front of council for what is a fairly administrative task, I'm afraid.
I get it now.
Right, any further comment? Did I have a mover? Do I have a mover? Please, Charlie, seconder, John? Any questions, further questions? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Moving on to the next item. We're going to, we're running a little bit ahead of time, so we're going to carry on to Pounds Street.
Yeah, Your Worship, can I just interrupt you there? You're on fire today. There is a person, or Mike Noonan, that Mike Noonan wants to be here. Just listen to that go through. He'll be here at lunchtime for the.
Okay, we'll skip to Whangamata RFA car park, if you're happy with that, Terry.
Yep.
Okay, that's on page 574, people. Do I have a mover?
Yep.
Terry, okay, second, John.
Okay.
Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Okay.
Against, carries. Leases and licence to occupy, page 585. So, yeah, so we'll have a mover. Movement, everything? Martin, Clark Sigler, Murray, any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Transport investment plan, 598.
Take this report as read. So this is part of the productivity plan with the economic development arm, and this is around connected journeys. So we have done stakeholder workshops around transport and the issues, and it aligns with Waka Kotahi's long-term business plan as well. What we're signposting is that these are suggested business cases that we can pursue, not using any TCDC money. It would be with external funders. We've also been working closely with the roading team who have got some things in train, particularly around investigating sort of a high-level walking and cycling strategy for the district. So if there's any questions around what's in there, happy to take questions.
So, any questions?
What am I,
Huh? No, well, that's where she said it's all external funders.
It's the top drawer stuff that we're able to pull out when we can.
I'll get some
So
meetings
around
with
the
including other councils with this as well. Is that right? Someone to be included, Hauraki, Madamariki.
Yes, they were part of the stakeholders group.
It's been great.
So was this around the idea of, as I often use, but like the shovel ready thing, so you put it in the drawer to say, oh,
Yes.
some money.
That, and also like the same to the other side of the Hakako Ranges, that there's another part to the Waikato, this other half, which is us. So that's why we've worked in with the other councils, so it's really strong, and it's really good, so we haven't moved in a supervision. No?
I'll second.
Sally, any further discussion? If none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried, well done, good work. So if we're leaving Pound Street, so the rest is public excluded, so we're going. Yeah, I'm getting. Well done. Just making sure we haven't got anything else about from John's one. Okay. Well, so we
Okay, good, Chair. We'll take the report as very fairly straightforward, Chief Executive's report this time. Around generally showing on track, below budgets, but I would say on track is probably the best commentary. I think in terms of capital expenditure, we'll probably pick up those projects in following Christmas, because it tends to be the roading area where they spend most of their money in the first few months, so it's a phasing issue. Other than that, we're working through the Three Waters project, which is a massive undertaking. We've got a couple of staff seriously involved in filling in the required information for MD. The Resource Management Act, we're keeping abreast of the proposed changes in that space. And with Sugarloaf and Coping Marine, we're progressing those projects as quickly as we can. We're getting close to actually getting a signed contract for Coping Marine, which is really exciting. It'd be nice to have that contract signed soon, and we are intending to launch all the resource concerns in December very shortly. It's in December, we're at the end of this month. So that's really positive information. We've completed the pre-consultation exercise, which did have a solid response. 1,336 people responded to the Facebook poll and 1,156 to the online survey. So we will be bringing more details about that feedback to the workshop next Tuesday. And we also need to give Gary an invite to the workshop next Tuesday because that is not going
Okay, I just want to raise one thing. Crate Day was a bit of a disaster for Whangataa. They had a number of streets which were just littered with broken glass. A few members of the community got out and were helping our one.
Is that my chief executive report?
Yeah.
Or is that my members report? I don't know, sorry, I'm confused.
This is part of your chief executive, so I'm telling you about an incident. The reason I'm telling you that, I'm leading up to it. I'm leading up to it, okay? Because there was only one staff member on duty that day and couldn't cope with all the amount of glass that needed to be swept off the streets. Luckily for that person, everybody gathered round and helped out in the community. I just want to raise the issue of coming up to summer and the amount of people and support in our communities in the after hours, because that weekends after hours, well, this is in front of the Tafa Crate Day. And that person was a bit overwhelmed. So I'm just saying, it's not possible. Okay, we are in for it this summer. Okay. Rightio. Kopu Marine thingy, don't forget Marine Queen Street it'll need upgrading. I can't think of anything else. Come on. Anybody got any questions for Rob? Staff doing a great job, but I think things are going really well personally. There's a lot of work out there and our staff are working incredibly hard.
What I will say from the staff perspective is this year has been an incredibly bizarre year and staff have been working on overdrive for pretty much most of the year. I'm trying to encourage staff to take a reasonable break over Christmas. The difficulty with this district is it's our busiest time.
Yeah.
So, trying to please everybody all of the time is proven quite difficult. And if we don't give our staff reasonable opportunities to take breaks, we're going to see a few staff falling over. So whilst I am encouraging staff to take a break over Christmas, I will need to spread that out into the new year as well as we do undertake our responsibilities. For over the busy period. So again, harking back to sort of wanting staff to do things, they are stretched, and we're doing our level best to service the team. So please sort of understand that it's. I've seen a few staff under serious pressure in recent times because they haven't had time to take breaks.
And of course, we're getting more and more people on the peninsula. So you get more and more demand for this at the next thing, so quite huge really. Okay, any questions of Rob? Martin?
Yeah, I was sort of trying to get my head around the sort of new look, and I think I'm more comfortable with it than the previous one. There seems to be better visuals around it.
Well, again, it's always a report that we're open to change, so we're always open to receiving feedback at any time. So we just want it to be as easy as possible. For myself, I've forgotten to bring my glasses in here, so I can't read any of the comments in my.
Rob, as a general comment, how are you finding getting contractors in today's environment? In view of the fact that pretty everything's strict to the limit, and where your costs going because of that?
Yeah, I think we've seen over recent years costs have increased because of the pressure that the construction industry in particular is under in New Zealand.
Sorry to interrupt. Are your contractors loyal and holding costs, or are they?
Mo's left the room, but from my experience at the moment, I'm not anticipating major changes in this 12-month period. We have been negotiating certain contracts, and it looks as though we're in kilter with our estimating, so I'm reasonably comfortable with where we're at. With regard to the LTP, I do have anxieties that costs will start to escalate again as this new government starts to undertake new projects and programs, but we'll see. At the moment, for the next 12 months, I'm seeing a level of reasonableness with the quotes we're receiving.
I think that the supply chain is going to fail. You can see what's happening around the world. The containers aren't coming here. Bunnings and houses aren't being completed, so I imagine it would spread across everybody. So I expect it to go down and the price to go up.
I saw in the media house building prices are scheduled to sort of escalate relatively rapidly. Again, that's the media. Economists have been giving us predictions all year, and I don't know if there's been one economist that's been right. So, like I say, this has been one of the most bizarre years in history, really, for predictions being proven wrong before they've even been made. So, again, I'm not anxious about this current financial year, but we're doing our best to track where things are actually heading.
Right, do I have a mover? John, seconded, Sally, any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Okay. And so we're now going to Pound Street, which is on page 575. John?
Yes.
Dustin? So it's not.
What page is it on?
572. Okay, 572. Any comments you want to say, Tom?
Madam Chair, no, I think the report's fairly straightforward and pretty simple.
Okay, do I have a mover?
I'm happy to move it.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, can I just say that this is another situation where we have is this a council property or a community board property? Is that community board? Because here we have a commercial property which could be let out for far more than $350 a year. So, and here we've got a term of 5 years and a right of renewal. So I'm just a little bit perplexed as to why we're doing a right of renewal if we can get a better return on investment.
We keep it to a short-term lease because we do see the possibility that we using that land sometime in the future for another use. So at the moment it's sitting there.
Originally you said 2 years.
Did we say 2? No,
Yes,
it was 5.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, this property is a reserve. It's not a commercially held property.
It's the one behind it.
But it's had a commercial entity in there, hasn't it?
It has in the past, and that's one of the reasons why they moved on, because they weren't compliant with the Reserves Act use of the land.
Shit.
And on a positive note,
I don't like this.
on a positive note, the group Kilkers have received the funding to start that up. So it's full steam ahead on that one.
I understand that, but quite frankly, I don't like the fact that we are not making the best use of a decent piece of land that could have a decent return on investment.
Yeah. That zoning didn't allow that to be commercial.
Anyway, that's
But a mitigation issue, it has got a 12-month written notice to be terminated, so if they do come up with anything,
We do have some boards that we will do.
It is the community board's land,
Yeah, we will do something there.
or otherwise I have something to say. I like a decent return on investment. Rightio, okay.
So you're actually saying, Murray, that the lease actually says we've got a right of renewal for 5 years, but at any time we can give you notice.
That's it, it's in this paper. It says termination on 12 months written notice.
Yes.
That's pretty standard of a lot of our leases now.
So I see a bit of a conflict in those two things, but if you think that's legally robust, that's fine.
Yeah, it was trying to give some certainty for the group to get on with their activities, but preserving for council the flexibility if a much better use came up to be able to terminate earlier. And Kilter going into that arrangement with their eyes wide open also.
Any further comments or whatever?
Presumably because it's a plant nursery, there's limited infrastructure build on the land. They're not going to be putting up 5 buildings.
No, there's currently a rather large tin shed already on the property.
Right.
And open metal area outside for vehicles and so forth. So it does lend itself to that use.
Sounds like it, yeah. Cool.
Okay, I'll put the resolution, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? I'm going to abstain. Sorry, no, it just, yeah, I know, can't do it. Okay, so now we've done that one, so that's through, and then if we go down to the members' reports, Murray, I'll let you take over. I've got to pre-prepare for the meetings. So, thank you.
Okay. Anyone want to start off?
Members' reports.
You want a quick one before you go or not?
No.
I'm not going to rehash all the numerous AGMs and other type meetings I've been in the last couple of months. They have been across a wide variety of different organisations, and Sally and Robin have been equal as well. The main thing we realised is that lots of our community organisations are really running on the smell of an oily rag, and worrying over a few $100. And also the main worry that they have is around volunteers, because volunteers are vulgar, and people don't really want to go on committees and sit in meetings anymore. Yeah, but I will put all these things that I put into the community board in the report, and that's the other thing, there has been a heap of activities happening in Thames around the art space, murals and other type things happening, and it has created quite a buzz. And as well as that, we had some discussions around the Christmas tree at the Guru Day, which has got its lights on this year, which has also created some positive stories in the community as well. So that's all I've got.
John, are you ready? Would you like that we carry on with Jerry? For members' report?
Is my turn, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Great timing. Yeah, it's been busy actually. I never usually thought I'd have to much because I don't want to bore you guys with all bits and pieces. So lots of meetings, 3 over the weekend. What has taken a lot of time is Ariki Taki, the sugar road development. That's actually really interesting. Going to the public consultation stage now. We had 2 full days a couple of weeks ago. Certainly that's sitting out, had a lot of people coming through. A lot of different thoughts on it. We had a special meeting on Sunday with the group business ratepayers from out by the sugar loaf. Led by somebody who's very knowledgeable in the resource management act, and quite against it, but we sat down with them and talked to them for a couple of hours. Can't say that we actually convinced anybody, but it's a good idea. But yeah, so lots of meetings, pretty busy around the year.
Jerry.
I don't know what to say really. Really disappointed. Beach Rock was great. It was the biggest beach rock they've had in the 20 years. Fantastic. Very good. Thank you.
Well, it's been a very interesting year for me, aside from the fact of COVID. I've had a few matters I've had to deal with, but I went through a stage, because as you know, I'm a lawyer and I believe in the process. I'm a great believer in that, and that's what I've been brought up to do. And as you know, I got a little bit raised the issue that I was concerned that the legal process wasn't being followed. And I got to the stage that I was actually going to resign. Terry, in his wisdom, said, well, it's going to cost a bloody lot of money for a by-election, and they're actually achieved quite a few things, like allowing councillors now to have more information that you didn't have. And I had to use my legal situation there and other aspects that occurred. So I stayed on, and I'm finding something that when it gets hard, I'm dealing with something at the moment which involves the council and the police, and I'm actually trying to tie it together because someone's getting away with blue murder and he's too hard to deal with. And I'm trying to empower the council to do what they should be doing, and I'm trying to empower the police to do what they should be doing, because they actually don't know what the law is. It's something criminal harassment I've done. I've got a major cases on that. So in fact, we may see it happen, but sometimes I can use my legal background, and that's why I think I'm probably helpful to be here. And I'm not trying to slag off the council or the police. I'm trying to help them to make something happen, which is just making it quite terrible for some people in the neighbourhood, and hopefully that will resolve. So the beach hop was amazing. I didn't make it right at the beginning, but I got the last bit, and I think, Terry, you said 120,000 people. And what's happening, Whangamata is a huge, buzzy place, and now we've got Joe's Farm coming up, where they've sold first night's 11,500. They limited it, not anymore, and the second night's 15 and something thousand. And we're just holding our breath a bit because we're not quite sure how Whangamata is going to cope with all that, because only about 4,000 can stay on site. So it's only for 2 nights, but we just hope it goes well, because it's going to be so full of Whangamata and all these other people coming in. It's one of those things that it'll be an interesting time, but Whangamata is really buzzing, as is Tairua and Panamura, the whole. But with those events we have, like Joe's Farm and Beach Hop, you just go, wow. And very well behaved, but I didn't know there was any glass on the road.
No, I didn't know it. It's news to me.
Thank you.
Martin summed up what the three of us have been doing quite well, and we've attended quite a lot of AGMs we've been out and about, and of course having lots of conversations about our love of art around. It's really lovely to see the place live, I think, and have positive comments. I've been involved with 2 other things which I just want to signal now we'll hopefully get to hear about more next year, not last year. They're forthcoming things. There's a group in Thames who have been looking at food waste and the data of food waste in our community, and they've engaged the Design Factory to come up with a couple of ideas about what we can do, and they're hoping to have a workshop with us next year. But it's been quite interesting to see the process and how that process has been working in terms of food waste. So hopefully, together with the campaign that Council will be launching, we'll really have momentum next year to tackle that issue. And the other thing that I've been involved with now for a couple of years, but that is moving forward quite quickly now, is something called the Connect Teachers Forum, where we've been tackling we've been getting different agencies and organisations and clubs together in Thames to talk about how we can really combat social isolation and connect people up as a community. And so it's been quite a privilege to be a part of both of those, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about those with you next year.
2 things for me. What keeps me awake at night in Thames is housing, from every sort of housing. And it's cripplingly short, and so that's a challenge for government and us. So things like the Thames spatial planning, etc., absolutely essential. It's been quite exciting. The other thing with my hat on, tomorrow we've got our last emergency management committee for the year, The risk assessment report on that is what you were saying before about how do we person up very quickly if an incident occurs and try and give people holidays, and people will always do the right thing if I'm going to be crass, but I won't be, I'm trying to change it, if things happen badly. And so that's a real issue for us, and there's a lot of talk about water, and what the other thing that keeps me awake at night is fire. And so that's for me, any messages, prevent fires and look after your water.
Right, so likewise, we've had a number of meetings. The last one, interestingly, was for the Midbury Bay South group. And the big thing that's happened there, the drawings are now in at Flaxmore Bay. I went over and looked at them, one for last, but they're completing them. I've got to say, most impressed with the organisation doing that. Significant machinery, highly organised, and a lot of support in the community. So we are seriously hoping that they do what we think they do. And as a follow-up to that, when the Waikato Regional Council were in our patch, really done around the shoreline stuff, particularly, Murray hosted that group at his place to get a few people on site, including Mr. Ross Remington, and I was with him yesterday, and he is actively going to support the drawings that we are talking about on the beach. Beach hop again, fantastic. What that does for Whitianga, coming there for a day, now we were in Thames, but I got back mid-afternoon, and the town was just, well, apart from the number of cars coming my way, coming home, which is about they are. What it does for our community, beach hop, as well as others that pass through, it is fantastic. You come by the Corridor pub and everywhere you can park. So I think it's a place that struggles for a lot of this year, and beach hop is probably one of the places that's really what it is. So yesterday I was at the Waikato Regional Transport meeting, and a couple of things out of that. So Cheryl Fitzpatrick, she raised the issue of driver licensing, and particularly for restrictions, and for Mercury Bay, because our people have to drive 100 kilometres to come here, maybe fail and go back and come back again. That means someone's going to take a whole day off work to bring Johnny or Janet over here to do that. But we're not the only ones, because through Howrah here, the same problem, and Waihi, those places. There's been a 63% increase in job seekers in our district, which is 7th biggest in New Zealand, and 7th biggest is bigger than the whole South Island. So this is significant for school leavers and people want to get a driver's licence. So that now is on register. It is going to be represented back to NZTA, and I don't know whether staff want to respond to this correspondence from Cheryl via me. I don't know who else, I suspect others. Well, we're not going to go to REC to just give it that update. But it all comes down to funding. So there's one person who does it. NZTA provide the funding, AA provide the service, and until there's more money to hire more people to go to more places, we're stuck with one.
So do we only have one driver tested for the district?
I don't know if there's only one driver tested, it's only done here, and I suspect there may be only one or two on a roster of some sort.
Yeah. Well, the worst thing that ever happened is the privatisation of that service.
Yeah. That is in good train. It's not a Waikato Regional Transport Committee role, but they are actively supporting that, and that now is on a register to be represented. And Steve Buttons at the meeting, so he's aware of it. They've raised the public transport issue. So public transport is trains, public transport and community transport. Trains are really about to happen. There's a public thing in Hamilton. There are some going to Hamilton, but in community transport there are some huge gaps. But again, it comes to funding. So I'm aware people are looking at the opportunities and also looking at funding operations. Interestingly now, NZTA only did 1-year contracts for these people, and that is a limiting issue. And then if you actually want to provide a service, let's say from Tiara up to Hamilton, if you only get the service and the government support for 1 year, it's not a very attractive thing to go and make the investment. So there is a lot of work going on in that area, but it is definitely comes down to money, like everything. And the roading stuff, now there's an awful lot in its infancy, and I think Ed might have left us, but basically all the roading investment goes on this Road to Zero with the NCTA are. That's finding out where are the issues, where are people losing their lives, where are they being maimed, and investing into those areas. And then they come down to the regional areas and then our areas. So I know it's frustrating, but there is a matrix and it's very, very sound, and the hundreds, I can say thousands of projects go through that and they are weighted, and out the other end comes a model, which are all these pages of data and money. So we do have some stuff on there. It's not going to happen tomorrow. The things that we can talk about, though, we've had, and that I've raised, and what Lorna was talking about, is when we have severe weather events, we have whole communities cut off. So we need NCTA to recognise that and provide resilience on our road that goes around the peninsula so that people can get to and from either their work or their medical appointments or whatever else. So there's additional funding being applied for to make that happen with the NCTA. On the speed management, now that's a thing that goes back to the 27th of July, the meeting I was at. That is well recognised, and as I mentioned, that is something we will have more autonomy next year. So that will happen. Remediation following water events and weather events, we raised that. So not only get consent to do anything, that if it has to be done, it gets done, even if that means bulldozers pushing stuff over the side of the road to get the road open and get stuff done. Being able to actually have additional to open the road up, and say, oh, well, you take a bit more out and you have a bit of a bypass or lay-by, that is different than kettle of fish, so that's not really going to happen. And the other thing I've been raising, because people raised it to me for a long time now, is stop crossing state highway and local roads. So that attracts 25% funding from Kotahi and 75% is paid for by the individual. Ed is working on policies on that now, because we don't have a policy for it, but every other council around here I know about does. Pick the best of that out, and that will come back to us. Roughly $110,000 to put one in. But the cost to us not to have it, because cows and what they leave behind them, each tar seal, and we replace the tar seal. So that is coming our way. So and all I'd say is that our regional council transport stuff, it's all online. The agendas are there, the minutes are there. I won't send it to everybody. If you've got to read it, you've got questions, let me know. If I can't answer it, let me know. He certainly will answer it. I should just say, Ed, it's great. He is the only council person that comes to these meetings. And he came and did some stuff that I personally missed. Because a lot of the stuff, and Sally, you'll know, it was Hamilton-centric. You sit in a meeting and say, wait a minute, this is all that's about Hamilton. There's other people in this district. So it's taking wording out of documents to make greater Waikato and not Hamilton, or so that we all get one of the church. So, yeah, that's it from me.
Tony, I have got nothing specific to report. Easy. But I have someone move to the members' report being received. Thank you, John. Thank you, Martin. All folks, please say aye. Aye. No. I'm now going to adjourn the meeting.